Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for your time and for joining us today on the AFRAA SkyConnect, the June 2022 edition. Today, my guest is a special lady, which does not require much introduction as she's very familiar to most of you. She is Madam Fadimatou Noutchemo. She is the founder and CEO of YAAPA. That's all I would want to say now. I would allow her to tell us about herself a bit later. Ladies and gentlemen, on today's show, we are going to be discussing a number of issues, particularly bordering on the industry's recovery within the Central African region, tourism and air transport developments, the role, responsibilities and activities of YAAPA, as well as any challenges that the association YAAPA might be going through and what support it might need, the working relations between YAAPA and other industry organizations, and how YAAPA is prepping itself to support the development of African aviation by developing talents in youth and women. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have a very heavy day ahead of us, and it's just only for 1 hour. Before we start, some housekeeping announcements. As always, ladies and gentlemen, you have the opportunity to participate in the discussions. So if you want to ask a question or make a comment, please use the Q&A tab or the comments box, and intermittently I will review them and read out your comment or ask your question to Madame Fadimatou. Ladies and gentlemen, we would actually also, at the tail end of it, as in previous sessions, have Fadimatou give us some key points and key takeaways from our today's discussion. Without much ado, I would want to invite Madame Fadimatou to the show. Madame, you're welcome.
Thank you, Raphael. It's a great honor to join you today.
Great. Yes, so let's get started. Probably tell us briefly about who is Fadimatou and what do you do?
I'm Fadi, the founder of the Young African Aviation Professional Association, and recently got the opportunity to become the country director for AfriJet, a regional airline in Central Africa. And we've been actively for the past 8 years advocating for the aviation stakeholders to get youth and women involved.
Wow, so you've been, YAAPA is 8 years old.
Yes.
And in the last 8 years, you've been involved in advocacy for youth and women.
Yes.
So let's now get to the substance of our discussions today and looking at the aviation industry recovery, particularly in the Central African Central Africa region, sorry, not republic. Region. In the whole continent, we all know that the industry was badly hit by the COVID pandemic and is still struggling to recover. But we also know that in the Central Africa sub-region, even before COVID, air transport connectivity was a challenge. How was the situation during COVID and how is the recovery coming up?
First of all, it's a great opportunity for me to talk about the Central African region because I consider that we are the last in Africa with regards to connectivity. And we have not been able to succeed in getting for example, the capital cities of the 6 countries of the Central African region. I will summarily explain. We have Equatorial Guinea, we have Chad Republic, we have Central African Republic, we have Cameroon, we have Congo Brazzaville, and Gabon. So these 6 countries are connected, but the airline development in Central Africa region is very poor. The connectivity has solely been done by airlines from Western Africa, Eastern Africa. So ASKY, for example, serves more the Central African region than the local airlines. And for those who don't know, we have Cameroon Airlines in Cameroon, we have Seiba in Equatorial Guinea, we have AfriJet in Gabon. Chadia just stopped its collaboration with Ethiopian, so we don't have any airline there. Yet, in the 6 countries, we don't have an airline that connects the 6 capitals daily. So we still rely on airlines out of the region to connect cities.
Wow, so then ASKY is doing a good job in the region. In its absence, the situation would have been quite chaotic.
Definitely, ASKY and Ethiopian Airlines are doing a lot. And we also have airlines from Europe, because you find some people at times with regards to their obligations who have to fly out of the continent to come back to the same region with Air France or SN Brussels. So today the tendency is gradually changing because people fly to Lomé and get back to Bangui, for example. So we hope to see that, and this was a condition before COVID. So COVID came in and it literally stopped a lot of activities because airlines we used to have South African Airlines flying into Central Africa, they stopped. Kenya Airways was doing a great job, but they are since the beginning of the relaunch of activities after COVID, they have reduced their frequencies. Rwanda is also flying into Central Africa and serving 3 countries at the moment. So this is still making connectivity in the region very difficult because the costs are high and the activities between the countries in Central Africa region are very slow.
So now in that region, I noticed, and this is my personal observation, that it would appear that Central Africa is almost all onto itself. It's just by itself there. And I hardly see the way the East Africans, the West Africans crisscross this continent for business, for other activities. I don't seem to see that from people of Central Africa. Is it because of connectivity or just that there's self-sufficiency in concentrating activity within the region?
No, personally, I believe it's connectivity and also information about the opportunities existing. And I must also admit that the language could be a barrier because West Africa has a mixed up of English and French speaking countries. And in Central Africa, we have 5 French speaking countries and 1 Spanish speaking country, which is Equatorial Guinea. So one of the advocacy in the activities that I do and why I stay in this region is because I want people to discover what happens in Central Africa, the opportunities that are existing, and also the business opportunities, because we shouldn't only think about airlines flying into Central Africa to get passengers out of the Central African region. We should think about intensifying the collaboration and building policies, practice collaboration with the existing airlines so that we could benefit from more visibility and connectivity and talk about the resources that we have.
It would appear that the challenge might not just only be connectivity, but also facilitation. Am I right that visa access to get into some of the countries in Central Africa could be a challenge?
No, It's a challenge. I must admit, it's a challenge, and the efforts that you in particular, because I'm happy to discuss this with you, is because you've been advocating a lot with some other Africans on opening the boundaries and visa facilitation. That is a big issue. You know, it's only since 2018 that we in the Central African region could have the visa-free access to other countries. Yet, I still have people who are convinced that they need to get a visa from Cameroon to go to any other country. So a lot of advocacy in the region is being done, but we also need the governments to understand that if we really want to open up, we have to follow what is happening across Africa.
Amidst difficulties now of connectivity and facilitation, how is tourism development in the region like?
The irony is we are a very rich and diverse region, because from the north with the Chad, you meet the Sahara, then with Cameroon, Congo, Gabon, you find the dense forests. In Cameroon West, you have the highlands. But we have been working on bringing up this industry, a lot of sensitization, especially with the next gen, because we are not versed with tourism. People in the past used to visit some of the parks that we have, because we are a very rich region with natural reserves. All the 6 countries have parks. I mean, when you go to Chad, you definitely have historical relics of sultans' graves, but this is not known. So the tourism sector is in the evolution point. We are now trying to get strategies to get the people themselves talk about this tourism. But let me not be misquoted. We have some countries in Central Africa that have their tourism that is for their people. In Gabon, the approach is different. You know, they have like the beaches where it's a culture. You find people going to these beaches to look at the animals. In Congo, Brazzaville, there is a lot of advocacy, a lot of activities, but this is not being centralized as a region to make a package attractive where people could fly into the Central African region and leave from one country to the other to discover this diversity.
So let me get this. Assuming I am a tourist, I want to come to Central Africa region as a tourist. What are some of the attractions I'm likely to see that should be a motivator for me to come in?
First, I will start with Cameroon, because Cameroon is not only my country, but the biggest country in Central Africa with a population of 26 million inhabitants. And we have the Chariot of the Gods, which is Mount Cameroon, very impressive. And also by the banks, we have River Uri, from where Cameroon got its name, River of Crowns. And then you have natural parks. Today, I know that we also suffer from the insecurity at the borders with Boko Haram on one side, or the small revolution we have in the west and northwest of Cameroon. But we have some tribes, like in the south, the Pygmies, which have a rich history. They are the conservative populations that are still in the forest. We have the waterfalls. We have, this is for Cameroon. Now, when we go to Equatorial Guinea, we have in the heart of Malabo. By the way, we just inaugurated the new airport, which is very impressive. We have a national park in Malabo. Then we have a lot of beaches, attractive beaches in Luba, Moka. It's really historical what you can see there, what nature has given. And then we have the parks with the birds, the animals. Wildlife is one of the characteristics that we have in Central African region. Same for Gabon. In Gabon, you have a unique beach where you find the whales. They come there annually for the reproduction, and at the same time you have the wildlife. So we always say it's unique because you have the sea and the land on the same spot. And when you go to Congo Brazzaville, you have they call it the Eye of the God, Akanda National Parks. You have a lot of parks. If you want to be closer to nature, this is what Central African region reserves for you.
Wow, that's impressive. In fact, not to talk about the excellent cuisine, which is my favorite, the seafood region. It's absolutely fabulous. And ladies and gentlemen, I recommend Central African tourism to anyone who might want to, bearing in mind that there might be challenges with air transportation, as well as visa facilitation into some of the countries. But once you get in there, your life will never be the same again. Thank you so much, Madam Fadimatou. Now, so how do you think we can improve air connectivity within Central Africa?
Now, this is, well, personally, I believe that most of the airlines that fly into Central Africa don't have the right approach to what should be done. Because when I see the big carriers from West Africa and East Africa flying into Central Africa and then trying to link the local market, if we want to look at it on a strategy of connecting Africa, I think there should be more communication between the domestic airlines or the regional airlines and these airlines from the other regions, because it's a fact that aviation is more developed in these other regions. So I count on AFRAA to actually put them down to enable them talk. I will take an example with AfriJet today. AfriJet connects 4 of the countries in Central Africa, but we only fly ATR aircraft. So when we get passengers from Senegal flying into Cameroon with Air Senegal, they definitely want to connect on our aircraft from Douala to Malabo. So these kind of discussions, if we think about the development of African aviation and improving connectivity in Central Africa, there should be a discussion between the big carriers sitting down with the regional airlines and seeing how they could become feeders in both directions. Because we are promoting this tourism, because we want business, we want the free trade zone to also be effective in Central Africa, we definitely need to get people flying all the way with a big carrier from South Africa or from Angola or any of your big countries, but to talk and connect. So if we want to develop this interconnectivity, this will enable these smaller airlines to be able to connect point to point these capitals at least twice a day. So
is there an appetite for this sort of collaboration by these small local carriers in Central Africa? Do they have an appetite?
Of course, there is the appetite. Personally, in my advocacy, if I want to talk about the next generation, if I want to talk about women given more position and power, I definitely speak to all, both governments and these airlines. And most often, you will be surprised to see that it just didn't happen. They just didn't sit down to think they could work in collaboration. So there is an urgent need for this rise post-COVID to get the people sit down and talk, because it's useless to reproduce what we've been criticizing before. So you find 3 airlines flying to the same destination with the same, almost the same time. I mean, that's not what we want to see post-COVID, because we all know no one is making profit. So it's high time these airlines sit down, and we are ready. I mean, at AfriJet, I know we are ready.
Yeah, but you are ready, but they say charity begins at home. Are there any collaborations between AfriJet, Cameroon Airlines, and Seba?
No, the discussion, I've been in function for a month and a half, and believe me, the discussions are on the way. For example, we are trying to readapt our problems to the solutions that we have locally. If I have an AOG, I should definitely be able today to rely on Cameco. I mean, this has happened where I had an AOG, but my passengers had the satisfaction of continuing their flight on the same day. These are the kind of discussions that are on the pipe. And we want to believe that it's definitely going to mature for something, because we need to have educative conversations to change the mindset of people just seeing the others as competitors. If we want to go and follow the flagship of the African Union, if we actually want to implement the regional integration, then it's obvious that SEIBA, Cameco, and AFRAA and any other airline on the pipeline in Central Africa region should talk, because we have approximately 40 million inhabitants, and Cameroon alone serves 2 landlocked countries, Chad and Central African Republic. So if we really want to see business grow within the region, we definitely need to see passengers flying every day between Chad and Douala, Central Africa and Douala. Gabon, we are already doing it. There is a huge connectivity between Gabon, Cameroon, and Malabo, and very soon we'll be going into Bata by the 20th of June. So these discussions are open. There is no way one can succeed. It has to be a group.
I believe all the 6 countries in the region have signed on to SATA. Is that?
Yes, yes. The good news is we are all members, we have all signed up for SATAM. And there is this will, there is a will for development, there is a will for attraction of business people, there is a will to sell the region for its potential to be explored by other Africans. And there are a lot of facilitations ongoing, and we invite everyone to have an eye on Central Africa.
Good advertisement for Central Africa by you there. Thank you so much for doing a good job for your region. Now, let me take the discussion a little bit to what you do on a regular basis, on a day-to-day, which you just told us you've been doing for the last 8 years. YAAPA. What does YAAPA really stand for? What do you do?
So YAAPA is the Young African Aviation Professional Association. So how did it come about? It's actually my life experience. So I studied in a rural area. I was a science student, but unfortunately, I was never attracted to aviation. So when I joined the airline Cameco in 2010 and found out that that was the industry that Africa needed to develop and that it had its potential, I had the opportunity to fly across the 5 regions of Africa. And I realized that we Africans have a wrong perception of what Africa is. And everyone just thinks that success has to be out of the continent. So I decided to try to advocate about this Africa, and I couldn't do it without creating something. So the idea behind YAAPA was to federate the aviation professionals so that we could, on a platform, talk about our countries that could generate conversations, share about our industry. Because a lot of people, when I tell them, oh, you want to study in aviation, go to Kenya, they look at me and they're like, they are still on what media presents to us, because media is popular on putting on, you remember the incident that we had in the mall in Kenya. People still talk about it today. When you talk Kenya, people tell you Al-Shabaab. I mean, and I'm like, yeah, but it's also like Boko Haram, but we all work around. So for me, it was supposed to be a platform with ambassadors from the 54 states that could talk about their countries, that could share what is being done in their countries. And it's still my belief that by talking about aviation, because it's amazing aviation, it's the only industry that can facilitate you discover these cultures, this tourism, these countries. So that's what founded the Young African Aviation Professional Association, because it's my belief that the heritage that our elders will give to us, we have to pass it. So if we want to succeed, if we want to change and leave a blueprint, it's only by being united.
And your focus is on the youth.
Yes, my focus is on the youth and the girls in particular, the girls who later on become the women, because a lot of girls are being kept aside in some of the African cultures again, where they say, oh, it's meant for boys. You want to become a pilot? Oh, it's meant for boys. You have to be a housewife. You have to get the kids, the women take care of the kids. No, this dialogue is gradually changing, and through the industry, which is aviation, it has to change. And I tell people that aviation is the pivot for all other industries, because you cannot be talking about attracting investors. How do they come? They definitely need to come through aviation. And when you produce, as we talk about the intercontinental trade, how do you send your products? How do you send, we talk about promoting agriculture. How do you send the fresh products to other countries that lack it? It's cargo. So when we look about aviation globally, not only the airline, the airports, and all the other associated, it's actually a catalyst to economic development.
Now, I've noticed that most organizations launched by women targeted at the youth always center more on the girl child and not the boy child. This is just my personal observation, but I just want to believe that the girl child needs empowerment, but so is the boy child. If care is not taken, we might end up empowering the girl child and disempowering the boy child. And that is not what we want in the world. We want to empower both sexes so that they can actually take up the mantle. And I hope YAAPA is doing just that.
Well, we do gender equality. And the reality in aviation is, based on statistics, we have many more men than women. So we don't neglect the boys, because the boys always take part in our activities. But we want to get many more role models for the girls also. And there is a common phrase that I always use: men in aviation should try and inspire, mentor, and empower a woman. And that will increase the population of the aviation professionals. The boys already have a lot of role models. So they understand that by talking about gender equality, we just want their mindset to naturally integrate the girls and not do the discrimination that we used to experience. And this will make us have a better community. If we change the way the girl or the women are being perceived, if the judgmental part of saying your place is in the kitchen is being changed, then we will have a powerful industry, which is aviation.
Okay, so YAAPA, is it just a Central Africa-based organization, or is it a continental organization?
It's a continental organization because, as I told you, the purpose of doing it, the Young African Aviation Professional Association, is to create a platform where each country will be represented. It's vital for us to get to break down the barriers on the perception we have about others in Africa. You know, it hurts when you still hear an African say, those Arabs. It hurts when you some Arabs say, those Africans. And it's only using, for me, that still remains my dream, to see that stand up as African. And why not through aviation? Because all these regions have airlines. And the whole idea with it is to get these stakeholders also contribute to it. But I leave it to the continuation of our discussions.
So how is YAAPA structured across the continent?
So initially, when we launched in 2014, we launched an ambassadorship program, and we have people, I will not give names. We have people who opted to become ambassadors, and for one reason or the other, I don't know why, they went solo. So one of the biggest challenge is getting people understand that YAAPA is not a Fadi thing. YAAPA is an African thing. YAAPA is just an idea that came up to say, why don't we exchange? Why don't we call the stakeholders to focus on getting innovative ways of attracting young people, talking about the opportunities, getting different generations involved in its development? Because I was tired of hearing, oh, the African aviation is not fine. Yeah, it's not fine. We celebrated 50 years in 2019. The same year, Airbus was celebrating 50 years. And I remember during my speech, I said, we just need to make the calculation and see the number of African airlines that disappeared and count the number of Airbus aircrafts in the air. So if we want to be, and 2 years have gone because of COVID. So it's high time, if we want to meet up the next 50 years, to build our own strategies and approaches that will enable us as Africans of the 54 states get involved and share the best practices. There are some regions that have many more institutions than others. There are others that are much more developed. We need to find a way to get this message through and get these young people dream and see what is actually existing in Africa.
So now you have these ambassadors dotted around Africa, and you have these youth that you are sort of empowering. What are the type of programs that you run for these youth? And how is that preparing them for the aviation industry?
So the advantage is with time, we have many more organizations that have been established. We met Sawaya that emerged to become the Girl Flight program in South Africa that has been having great advocacy managed by Refiwe Lebwada, who's been doing an excellent job in South Africa. So we try as much as possible to connect with them and share what they do. We also have a Komoto of Botswana with the Dream Sour program. And then we have Obed from Ghana. So we've been, there is also an association, there are a lot of associations upcoming in the French-speaking African countries. So what we basically do, we use social media to share what we do, which is mainly advocacy, encouraging the stakeholders, the professionals to talk to the youths through different events. In Cameroon in particular, because one of the biggest challenge is funding. So over the years, I've been doing a lot of activities with the young people. I tried to organize the Youth Aviation Forum for Africa, in which you were my host, you were my special guest. And the dream at that time was to have YAAPA in each country every year. But between thinking and realizing, it's not been possible. But hopefully this year we are having the second edition. We are working on having the second edition because it gives the opportunity to young professionals and to youth to also give their ideas on what they think. Aviation today shouldn't just be something of a group of people or a generation, because with the new technology, with the challenges, many people are connected, many people see, and many people have ideas that they also want to voice out. So through outreach activities and events, it gives us a platform for them to exchange.
Great, thank you so much. I mean, I recall that incident was really a very powerful one. And ladies and gentlemen, you needed to be there. This young lady literally brought all schools in Cameroon together in Douala for an event. It was like a carnival of a sort. It was so impressive. And thanks to some of the OEMs, they provided souvenirs. So all of these children, at least, were all uniformed. They had a T-shirt on, branded T-shirts, and they got some giveaways, which were symbols of this aviation industry. It was very empowering, and I was really proud to be part of that event at the time. Thanks so much. I look forward to you doing a similar one this year. Yeah. Hopefully, we will bring in a lot more young people. But we also need not just to give them this sort of information and knowledge about the industry, but we also need to have a mechanism of tracking their progress as they go through school and after school. Do you have a program to do that? Are you actually doing some of your students to see whether after school, oh, now this person is here, is trying to do this?
Now, one of the reality in Africa, it's been a conversation that I've been engaging for the past years, and I hope that it will continue, is funding. Aviation is very expensive. And you know, in our African culture, we think wealth are the number of kids. So for those who have followed what I've done so far, I'm happy to announce that I have some who have had the opportunity to be funded by their families but who are performing in professions that are not existing in Africa. I will take the example of a young lady that had the opportunity. She loved electronical engineering. And I remember telling her that she should focus on aeronautical electronic engineering. And she had the opportunity to fly to Canada and study in Concordia University. And 3 years ago, by the time she was graduating as an engineer, she got immediately recruited by Adacel. So today, this is a young Cameroonian, it's my niece actually, who is an engineer working on software that manage airspace. So others are into engineering, piloting, but the challenge today is some who have had the opportunity to be trained pilots don't have recruitment because airlines want you to have a minimum flight hours. So those are some of the real challenges that I face, tracking. And then one other reality is people don't still believe in voluntary work. I don't get paid for what I do. So the young people who come around me or who in other countries volunteer quickly disappear because they don't think it's paying. And I want to use this platform to tell them that it pays, because once you persevere and the message goes out there, I'm not known today because I was paid. It's my passion and my hard work. I have sleepless nights. Every concept that I've had with YAAPA has been on me, and I have some young people who support, who don't give up, but we have a hope that it's going to pay, and it has actually paid. The recognition we've had until today, it's out of this work, which was voluntary work.
Wow. Now, I recall that a couple of years back, IATA at one of its AGM actually recognized you and the work you are doing for this industry and presented you with a cash award to be injected into YAAPA. I see you are smiling. It takes memories back to those days, huh? And I want you to tell us, what was it that you were rewarded for, and how did you apply the funding?
So I'm happy because on the 3rd of June, it made 3 years that I was on this stage, and you were there with me. So these are great memories. The hard work actually paid with an award of a $25,000 check. And we had plans for that unfortunately got halted by COVID. So the funds were actually, one, to establish regional offices, because it's still my belief that if we want to involve regions, we need to have a structure that will enable monthly motivation of people in the different regions. But at the same time, we also want to implement the community centers. So we, in some of the programs that YAAPA has initiated in Cameroon, we have what we call the YAAPA Act for Change, because by doing outreach in the rural areas or on the privileged areas, we found out that a lot of brilliant kids are actually left out from orientation because they don't have access to a lot of things. So the idea about putting these community centers was to be able to at least, either in the rural areas, we would have identified, built a small community with the local material, mud blocks, or have a decent room where we could put some computers and internet connection, so that when we have activities like now, or when we have professionals who want to entertain young people, they could gather up and have them exchange. Because one of the biggest challenge is a lot of things are not still accessible to a lot of people. And I know this because coming from a rural school, we were just limited by the information we could have. But see, if today we have technology, it's my belief that if we try to motivate and equip voluntary groups in regions, they could federate the people in that region and share a lot of what they do. The whole idea with this fund was continue to put together this African global outreach on what we have, and also get everyone involved. So COVID came, it stopped a lot, and now we are on a progressive relaunch. We are reviewing our strategies, and also some of this fund goes into financing the events that we do, because for the past years before that award, 1/3 of my salary goes into all my activities, even my travels, because a lot of people who have created organizations think that I got funds, I got supported, no. Until that award, 1/3 or half of my salary has always gone into my trips, attending conferences, reaching out my messages, and even organizing my events.
That's a lot of sacrifice.
Yes.
And I hope you are reaching out to some other organizations and institutions to continue to support these laudable ideas and programs that you are launching for African youth. Are you?
I will be honest with you. I reached out to so many, but unfortunately, their vision or approach with regards to Africa is discriminatory, I must say. Most of the OEMs after 8 years, I can say it loud, invest more in the regions where they have business interests. And I keep on telling them that we are working for United Africa, and Africans, if we follow our Agenda 2063 with a unique passport, we're definitely going to be a continent where it doesn't matter where you invest, an African will have the opportunity to go there and work. But if we want to train them, if we want to give them the opportunity to also know what is out there, if we really want to have most of these Africans stop the action of immigrating or going out of the continent, then it has to concern everyone. If not, while some will be improving, others in desperation will still be struggling to cross the ocean to go elsewhere. So I think that, and I hope that some of them are listening, we should have some kind of federation under the cap of organizations like AFRAA, AFCA, that can enable initiatives that we have, because today I'm not the only one. We have a lot of other organizations, and I pray we create a federation so that we could have the key points where we could actually have the opportunity to exchange within the continent and have the support.
Oh, great. Now at this point, let me just pick a couple of comments or questions that have come in. One from an anonymous attendee says, how does Madam Fadimatou view and support other organizations that aim to also support youth development? So in other words, how are you interfacing with other organizations that are doing something similar to what you are doing? What is your collaboration?
I'm very open. I'm very open for collaboration. I have reached out to so many. I remember when I was a member of the IKO NGAP, I encouraged a lot of them. I created a group to share the best practices and what we were doing. But the challenge that I have is the misconception of most. They believe that I get a lot of support. So when you explain to them that it's more sacrifice, and that if we stand up as a federation, what we have could be shared. If we get recognition as a federation of young youth promoting organizations in Africa, we will be stronger, because if I have to reach out to someone, because my concept is to do it for Africa, automatically it will be shared transparently with the other organizations. But this is a message that has not been, they don't believe at times, and it hurts, because they don't believe that if they see me somewhere, it's a personal investment. It's not that I get funded by the organizations where they see me. So I'm very open. I still say with open hands, because it's together that we can go further.
Great. Together we would go further indeed. Now, another listener or another participant called Moses Gitonga says he's an admirer of you and what you do. Gitonga is a student at Moi University in Kenya, and he said, I am the positive changes that we've adopted in the aviation industry. And personally, I am interested in starting or joining YAAPA in my country as an ambassador, because I've already bought your idea and mission as an association, and hereby very much interested in having my membership soon. So you've already got someone who is keen to be part of you. And Moses, I would recommend that you reach out to Fadimatou directly or through AFRAA to get her contact details and reach out to her on how you can partner and establish YAAPA or team up with other collaborators of YAAPA in Kenya. Thank you so much. So we just continue. Let me just ask this. So what would you, or how would you summarize the achievements of YAAPA in the last 8 years? What would you say are your top achievements?
First is to get recognition that youths need to be taken into consideration, because today I'm happy and proud to see that the young Africans are reaching out. The young Africans are curious, and many organizations are on the way, and the stakeholders are engaging more and more into what's the first. The second is to be able to come from a region, Central Africa, and federate with the whole of Africa. Because those who know me personally, I have friends in all the 54 African states. And that is one of the greatest achievements. And now it's for us all to benefit from what I can bring in for the implementation with the support of the organizations like AFRAA to ensure that what is being said is being implemented.
Yeah, I would come shortly to what you can do with AFRAA, but before we get to that point, I just want to know, so at this point, you've talked about the lack of funding, the lack of logistics to support your programs. What do you think you would need to move YAAPA beyond where you are today, to real empowerment of the youth in the aviation space? What would you need?
We need to get strong partnerships with institutions, educational institutions, financial institutions, because YAAPA today wants to position itself as a third party in negotiations between institution and educational institution and financial institutions. I believe that it's high time for African banks to engage on getting student loans to enable the African youth who want to get into aviation industry to get their studies funded.
Sorry, but you earlier mentioned about some of these students finish their courses in aviation but cannot get jobs, because particularly pilots, because they lack the hours. So if a bank finances these guys without the support that they would get jobs afterwards, how are they going to repay back these loans? Have you thought through this?
Now, that is why I will come a little bit to one of the reasons of my collaboration with AFRAA. So AFRAA has a key role in supporting these African pilots. And it's very important if we go into doing human capital investment and planification for the next 5 to 10 years on an estimate of the aviation growth, then the stakeholders, the airlines, in an honest way, should be capable of sitting down, making an analysis of what their need is, and also the civil aviations, because that's where AFCAC also comes in. The civil aviations need to get the data of those who are trained until we get statistics, accurate data per country of young people below 35 who are trained but jobless, we will not be able to give them the opportunity to join the African market, and it will result to a lot of frustration. We have some countries like Nigeria that has a lot of trained pilots and who are jobless. You find them becoming marketing agents when at the same time we say that that is an industry that needs more pilots or engineers. So until we honestly sit down, and that's one of YAAPA's dream, to put banks like EcoBank, UBA, African Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, to say, what do we do with these young Africans? If we are going in a strategy of saying we now open loans for airlines to get aircrafts, then these aircrafts in the projections will definitely need the human capital. And if they need the human...
Sorry, I'm sort of getting you that we are exciting youth in an area where there are no opportunities. So you get these youth excited, they make up their mind they're going to join this profession, and somewhere along the line, they are faced with frustration. Is that what I'm hearing?
At some point, that's what exists for some countries.
So why are we in that space? Why are we exciting more?
No, because as I still say, the differences of the development of aviation in Africa makes that some countries have overqualified youth who are jobless, and other countries don't have qualified youth and so import the labor. So I'm not discriminatory, but I'm saying what we are facing today is you will find a country like Nigeria where you have pilots who are jobless. And you go to Central Africa and you find that we import pilots from out of the continent to fly our aircrafts. My question is, if we know that aviation is the future industry in Africa for our own development, for us to meet up with the flagship of Agenda 2063, how can you explain that the younger ones who have a qualification are not given the opportunities when we know there is a need, and then we go out to import the same level? So until we find a way, and this is a call to the African Union, for example, to say, if we talked about the single African air transport market, if we are talking about the intercontinental trade, then we need to also get this young population involved, because it's a quick calculation. If I, YAAPA, launch on Facebook tomorrow, if you are a qualified jobless pilot in Africa, please send in your info. You're going to be surprised with the number of young people qualified jobless. Now, how can you get them into having an opportunity? I speak to AFRAA, and I will tell AFRAA, can't you speak to your members, the African airlines, if they can find a way or a program to integrate, irrespective of the nationality, of the African nationality of these pilots, the airlines. Now, I'm not being discriminatory. I'm just being realistic to say that if we have poor connectivity in Africa, then there is need for increased connectivity in Africa. So what are the steps into getting us into more connectivity is to also do a forecast plan on the aircraft acquisition. And if we go on to having the OEMs as partners, if you remember during my speech when I got my award in Seoul, I told everyone fearlessly that Africa is a future market for aviation. We are still the continent where we need to build airlines, airports, and we have the young population because we still have poor connectivity. That was 2 years ago. So if we take step by step and do a roadmap for the next 2 years, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, in a realistic way, where we really want to see the change, that's where YAAPA is bringing in this force of young people who want to ensure that our voice is heard and we are taken into consideration. So if we do that, our work will have constant growth. Because when we inspire, it's not only for the airline. We need to have, if you count the number of African airports that are in bad states, you definitely need to have these airports, which is engineering. If we have to go on digitalization, We have a lot of young Africans today, and that's why YAAPA has the Youth Aviation Tech Africa program that was established 2 years ago to get these young people passionate about new technologies, also think on doing applications that can serve us at a lower cost. So if we go into having why we get more youths, it's getting more youths not only into one sector, but in the whole sectors of aviation.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let me now switch on to your partnership. You have mentioned that you work with a number of other sister organizations across the continent who are focused on youth and women empowerment and development in the aviation space. Recently, you signed a memorandum of understanding with AFRAA. What is this about? I see you are talking about careers in aviation and you need partnership. Besides that, what other elements is this MOU intended to accomplish?
So AFRAA, believing on what we do, we have put our own flagship, which is to sort funding, special funding for these youths to be trained. So AFRAA and YAAPA today are reaching out to the rest of the world because we want to really constitute this fund to enable in transparency to give the opportunity for these professionals to gain training and also opportunity for the development of their careers. Why AFRAA, as we said, the member airlines are airlines, which means that they can change the norms and readapt so that we can integrate and have a progressive growth. And you know that AFRAA has a huge training program that's also available, and most of the professionals already working at times can afford that. So we are reaching out through our respective networks to raise this special fund that will enable us to give the opportunity to the ones that are interested. And it should be noted that young professionals are not only those in school. We have a lot of people who got into the aviation industry like me and who didn't have proper training, but who will be happy to get the opportunity to be trained to become qualified professionals.
Good. I just got a comment from Sandy Anzi Mohammed. He's asking whether we have translators who can actually help people that are not very fluent in the English language understand what is going on, because he thinks there's so much content here and people will be missing out. Sandy, unfortunately, this program is only in the English language, unfortunately. We wish we could have it translated, but so far we've not been able to fix that element of the puzzle. And unfortunately, my French does not cover the face of a postage stamp. So I'm unable to actually switch between English and French. In fact, if I attempt, it might even be worse for those who are not very fluent in English. So we just keep it straight at English, and we hope that going forward, we would see if we can be able to find a solution to engage with our French audience as well. Thank you so much for your concern, though. Yes, so you signed this MOU with AFRAA. You are hoping that together you would be able to make a much more impactful aviation content on the youth and the general aviation industry on the continent. Are you doing same with other organizations?
Yes, with the Girl Flight program of Refiway, we have been, for the past 3 years, been working in close collaboration to launch respective activities, but COVID came in. Recently, we are into signing an MOU with Avatonia, which is a company based in Mauritius that is specialized on training. That we are still to announce officially because there are opportunities that are on the way. And recently, I've been in a lot of discussions with Airbus and an Airbus team on a project, Africa Discovery Box, that will be launched soon. It's a project that has been developed by some engineers. And also we have on the ground talks with some other organizations that you will soon get to know about. And I'm happy because COVID has given us the opportunity to review and reinvent our approach. There will be some major changes in a couple of months with the YAAPA organization. And as I earlier said, we are open to anyone. Membership has been free for 8 years, so it's still free because we want people who are passionate, who are ready to give their time. And we hope that by the time, in a month or two, we will have a new communication on what will be the major changes that we will be having.
Great. Now, again, I'm getting a comment from Fiona. She wants to know if there's room for collaboration with other associations doing the same across Africa. Do you still have appetite for collaborating with others?
YAAPA's existence is all about collaboration. And Fiona, congratulations for your nomination. I hope that you get the award back to Africa. And these are people who have met me personally, with whom we exchange. And I'm also a member of Women in Aviation International, and this has enabled me to get across African women in aviation. And we are open for anything. It's all about promoting our industry. It's all about being proud of who we are as aviation professionals and inspiring the next gen.
All too soon, our time is up. Now, but before I let you go, Madam Fadimatou, CEO YAAPA, give us some final thoughts, some key takeaways from our discussions today. What do you want us to see going forward?
Way forward is imperative for us to unite and collaborate for the development of the African aviation industry. And it's time to seize the opportunity of COVID to reinvent our strategies to ensure that we get new policies and approaches that reflect our realities. I will want to see more people with regards to aviation training, train because there is an identified need. I will want to see the aviation stakeholders, AFRAA, AFCA, the African Union, the African Association of Training Centers. I will want to see all of them sit down and transparently talk and have takeaways on a plan that will be followed by everyone. It's time we seize the opportunity of the global crisis to be reborn. And I know that if we are sincere, honest, and transparent, we will be able to reinvent our own industry and improve connectivity. And you are all welcome to visit Central Africa.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fadimatou. The final comment was from Benis Sheila. She says, would you consider working with Young Aviators Club of Africa? And I guess the answer to that is an absolute yes. So Sheila reached out to Fadimatou, and she is willing and ready to work with you. And on that note, I would want to thank you so much, Fadimatou, for taking time to be our guest today on SkyConnect. And to all our guests on the show, I want to thank you for making time to participate in this session. And also for those who have sent in questions or comments, we appreciate your participation. And we look forward to you joining us again, first Wednesday of July, for our next explosive discussions on SkyConnect. Until then, have a lovely day, enjoy the rest of the week, and stay blessed. Have a nice day. Bye-bye to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.